When we think about ghosts, we always think about the past, right? An echo of something that's already happened. But what if that's not the whole story? What if a ghost could be a warning from the future? We're about to get into a story that completely flips that idea on its head. Yeah, you heard me right. This is all about a man who, for pretty much his entire life, was haunted by his very own ghost. It's a total paradox, and it challenges, well, everything we think we know about this stuff. So, to even begin to wrap our heads around how this is possible, we have to go back to the beginning, back to a guy who was living a very, very normal life. I want you to picture this. You've got this quiet man living out in some remote village. His whole life is just predictable. His world is his little house, and most importantly, his beautiful, peaceful garden. Everything is simple, calm, the same routine, day in and day out. Nothing ever changes. And then, just like that, everything changed. One afternoon, he's out tending to his garden, and he sees something out of the corner of his eye. It's this faint, almost see-through figure, just walking a straight path right through his yard before it, poof, vanishes. It was completely impossible. And yet, there it was. And just so we're all on the same page here, what he saw is what we'd call an apparition. Not a solid person, but that classic transparent, ghost-like figure. Basically, an image of a person where a person just shouldn't be. And believe me, this was only the first time. So this one impossible moment, it kicks off a mystery that would follow him for the rest of his life. Because this wasn't some one-time thing, oh no. This apparition became a weird, unsettling, but permanent part of his world.
And what's wild is how his reaction to it changed over time. I mean, that first year, it was a terrifying intruder in his sanctuary. But by year 10, the fear kind of faded into this strange routine, Like having a weird neighbor you see all the time but never talk to. 30 years in, it was just this familiar mystery, a puzzle he just accepted he wasn't going to solve. And after 50 years, the ghost was just there. It was as normal as the trees, part of the landscape.
But for decades, his mind was just racing. The first and most obvious question, of course, was who is this person? Is it someone who used to live here? Some lost soul? He had absolutely no idea. And then the questions started to shift a little. It wasn't just who, it was why. Why my garden? Why here? Is there some unfinished business? Does he need something? But of course, the apparition was always totally silent. He also started noticing just how specific its behavior was. It always, and I mean always, walked the exact same path, from this one old oak tree straight to the garden wall, and it never, ever strayed from it. It was like watching a recording stuck on a loop, which honestly just made the whole thing even weirder. And finally, after a whole lifetime of watching this thing, the questions just stopped. He basically gave up. He accepted he'd never get any answers. The ghost was just there, and he figured it always would be. So decades fly by, the man gets old, his life is coming to an end, and it's in his very last moments that the answer he'd given up on ever finding, well, it would finally come to him. And this is where the story gets really crazy. So there he is, lying in his bed. The window looks out over that same garden he's known his whole life. He can feel himself fading. He knows his time is almost up. And you know how they say your life flashes before your eyes? Well, for him, it wasn't really a flash. It was more like a series of vivid images. His childhood, his wedding. But one single image kept coming back, over and over again. That faint, ghostly figure walking through his garden. And in that moment, with this incredible clarity you can probably only get at the very end of your life, all the pieces of this 50-year-old puzzle just slammed into place. The path the ghost walked, the way it moved, even the vague shape of its body. It all suddenly made perfect, terrifying sense. He realized that ghost wasn't an echo of someone else's past. It was a projection of his own final moments. For 50 years, he had been watching a preview of his own spirit taking one last walk through the garden he loved. He wasn't being haunted by the past. He was haunting himself from the future. Now, as absolutely mind-bending as that story is, it isn't just some random piece of fiction. It's actually based on a really fascinating paranormal idea, a sort of glitch in time. Yeah, the whole idea is pulled from actual folklore, specifically from some of Scotland's absolute weirdest ghost stories. And these aren't your typical tales of ancient spirits. They're stories about people seeing ghosts decades before the accident or tragedy that supposedly created the ghost in the first place. The fancy term for this is a precognitive apparition, or a much cooler name, a future ghost. The theory here is that a really powerful, emotionally charged event, like a death, creates this massive energy ripple. And that ripple doesn't just travel through space, it can travel backwards through time. And this really breaks it down perfectly. A normal ghost, that's an echo from the past that haunts the present. But a future ghost is the complete opposite. It's an echo from the future that haunts the past. I mean, think about that for a second. For our guy in the story, that ghost wasn't some random stranger. It was an appointment he didn't even know he'd made. So, to put it simply, with this idea, a haunting isn't a recording of something that's already happened, it's a preview of something that's still to come. It's not a memory, it's more like a premonition that's become solid, a glitch in time where you see the effect long before the cause ever happens. Which kind of leaves us with this one final and pretty unsettling thought, doesn't it? What if all these ghosts and specters people see? What if they aren't just remnants of history? What if, just sometimes, they're actually glimpses of what's coming? Faint little previews of our own futures, just waiting for us down the road.